This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Why take one vacation with the family when you could take all of them? With Royal Caribbean, you don't just go to the beach. You visit a private island and race down the tallest water slide in North America. You don't just go for a road trip. You ATV and zip line through the jungle. You don't just go somewhere new. You rappel down waterfalls and discover ancient temples. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Duke fans, welcome to episode 506 of the DBR podcast. If you haven't listened to episode 505, stop what you're doing right now and go back and listen to it. Because episode 505 is where we discussed what's going to happen. Should they stay? Should they go? Should they hit the transfer portal? Should they go to the NBA? For all 5 of the returning guards and wings on the current Duke basketball team. If you don't know what Jeremy Roach, Tyrese Proctor, Jaden Schutt, and the such are going to do, go back and listen to episode 505. If you want to know what Kyle Filipowski, what Mark Mitchell, what Dereck Lively are going to do, this is the episode you should be listening to. I am Jason Evans. I'm your host. I am joined by Donald Wine and Sam Klein. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
I'm doing as great as I was 13 seconds ago when we finished the last podcast. So, hi everyone. I'm still in Grenada.
There's no pretending here. Sam, how about you?
Is my big prediction now that this has not been, nor will this be the last time that any of us confuse the first names of Dereck Lively and Dereck Whitehead.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're gonna, maybe they both won't be at Duke next year, and then this won't come up again. But guys, come on, be either be the same or be more different.
Look, one of the funniest parts of the season was in the span of an entire one possession. I forgot which game it was. It was a regular season. It may have been the game against Louisville at home. They said, "Yo, we have Dereck Lively and Dereck Whitehead." Like they mixed up the first names of both Dereck and Dereck, and they just mixed them up. And in the span of one possession, you're like, "Wait, who was he talking about?" Like. They had it was just hilarious to the fact that they were able to, whoever it was, I think it was Corey Alexander and what's his face, Dave O'Brien. They were like, yes, Dereck Lively and Dereck Whitehead. And I was like, oh, I don't think they know who they are.
You mean we had the ACC knucklehead crew calling the game?
Yeah, all ACC. Yeah.
In any event, gentlemen, one thing I want to make clear to everyone out there who is potentially listening to this episode, we're recording this around 4:30 in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. It is possible we could get declarations from any of these guys at any moment, declarations that they're staying, that they're leaving, that they're hitting the portal, whatever it may be. If that has already happened and you're like, what are these guys talking about? Just please forgive us. We are sorry. The news happens fast and furious.
If something breaks during this podcast, we will discuss it right now. That's my promise to you.
I have Twitter open.
Until then.
All right, but let's launch into it right now. And the same way we did with the guards and wings, with the big men, the contest is this. You will tell us, what will he do? What should he do? And we will start with the guy that I think most Duke fans are most interested in finding out the answer. That is Kyle Filipowski. Donald, I will go to you first. What will Flip do? What should Flip do?
This might be the biggest pickle that we have as Duke fans, right? I'm going to say objectively that I think that he is going to stay. I think he loves college. I think he enjoys college. And I think he has the competitive fire to want to stay a couple years and build a legacy. He has said that on this particular podcast, on this here show. I think he should stay. And again, that's subjective. Yeah, it might be a little selfish, but I do think subjective. And I think that he should stay and continue to develop his game, because I think at the end of the day, the fact that he was, viewed as probably the fourth, maybe fifth option on Duke's offense back in November and has excelled to this point. Yeah, most people say, yeah, that's the time to go. But this might be the time to say, yo, now that I am the big dog, that I can remain the big dog in college. And I think if he stays, he's preseason ACC player of the year. He's on the national lists, all of them. And I think he's one of the best players in college basketball.
Sam, where are you on this one?
I believe that Kyle Filipowski is going to stay at Duke next year because he leans towards all the things that he told us on the show last year: legacy, impact, academics, the whole thing. He's into the college thing. I think he should go. Right now, he's projected to be late first round pick, which was not on really anybody's radar coming into the season. He had, as we have stated many times, an astounding year for Duke. One of, relative to expectations, one of the best Duke freshman seasons ever, if not the best Duke freshman season ever, given
I'd say
the expectations.
Arguably the most surprising, for sure.
Right. Most surprising, yeah. Productive.
Let's be clear. Not the best.
No, I said only relative to expectations, right?
Oh, okay.
Like we thought Zion Williamson was going to be awesome. Zion Williamson was awesome. We thought Jolly Okafor was going to be awesome. He was awesome.
Marvin Bagley, Vernon Carey.
Blah, blah, blah. Right. Yeah. Kyle Filipowski might not be better than any of those guys in terms of Duke accomplishments or in terms of his career potential.
Paulo Banchero.
Sure. Keep naming names. It's fine. We know them all. I don't believe that Kyle Filipowski is going to improve his NBA draft stock, because he, in many of the ways that he stands out in college, he does not stand out in the NBA. And where we said on the last episode that, whoa, Dereck Whitehead is going to show up to workouts and scouts are going to be like, oh yeah, that dude, he's really athletic, and look at how well he's shooting threes and look at how well he's going through the workouts. I don't know that Kyle Filipowski is going to demonstrate all of those things. I don't know that he's going to do it consistently when he's going up against teams that have multiple guys over 6'10", the way that Duke had this year. And a lot of the stuff that protected him and kept him good at Duke this year, all of that disappears when he's in the NBA. The players are taller. They're faster. They're going to be able to block his shot. How many times did we talk this year about Kyle Filipowski getting his shot blocked by guys who were smaller than him?
Oh, man.
That's going to be a problem for him in the NBA. If he's getting a first-round pick this year and some team is like, we recognize all of those shortcomings, but we are excited about the hustle. We're excited about the way that you score at different levels. We are excited about sort of the progress that you demonstrated this year and your rebounding ability. I think he has to take that. So I predict that he's coming back, because I think he's oriented that way, but I think he should leave.
So my turn, and Sam, I'm 100% in your corner. I also believe that Kyle Filipowski is coming back. I think that Kyle Filipowski told the Duke coaches that he was coming back sometime last summer or early in the year, and he's going to keep that promise, and he believes that he will get a lot better. I also think that one of the major reasons that he can come back is that I think that Kyle Filipowski will, as you guys have said, be in the running for maybe even National Player of the Year next year. And I think he may be in a position to have an NIL package unlike anything anyone at Duke has experienced so far. So, I think Kyle Filipowski is going to be an extremely popular potential endorser if he comes back to school next year. What should he do? Sam, you're dead on target. If he knows, he should declare, and he should get some feedback from NBA scouts. And if he's getting word that he's going to be a first-round draft pick, he should stay in the draft, because I am scared to death of how Kyle Filipowski is going to look in those workouts. Let's remember the word we were getting out of Duke camp last summer, when it was the less structured workout kind of situation. And we were hearing that Kyle Filipowski was not showing out that well, that he was struggling. I mean, all of us thought that he was probably not even a starter coming into the season, that perhaps it was only the injuries to Whitehead and Lively at the beginning of the year that allowed Flip to even be a starter, because those kind of less structured, less game-like situations, I think, don't really fit him. And that's what he's going to be in when he's working with these NBA scouts. So I'm of the belief he should turn pro, but I'm thrilled to report that I believe he will stay at Duke and be a potential All-American.
And also, right, like we've talked about what he's become at Duke University so far in his freshman year, right? He's become that kind of stretch four guy. But what does the stretch four do in the NBA? They shoot a lot of threes and they make a decent amount of them. And the one thing that he was probably mediocre to, subpar at was the fact that he could make threes. I'm going to tell you, like I picked him to lead the team in 3-point percentage in the stats game, and he was not close to doing that, right? But I think that's something he can improve on, because I think that's something that NBA teams will look at and say, hey, you have the entire package, but if you can hit threes as well, Jesus, we will put you in the starting lineup tomorrow. And I think also, Jason, we talked about this in the last episode. I know we're going to talk about it a lot on this one. The fact that you said that this particular 2023 draft is pretty decent, but 2024 is supposed to be kind of a downward year as opposed to people eligible for the draft. If he stays and he becomes one of the best players in college basketball, if not the best player in college basketball, he's writing those tickets. He doesn't have to worry about being late first round pick. He has to worry about what lottery he's going to be in, right? Like that's the ceiling for him, is he can be a lottery pick next year if he stays and improves in all these areas and becomes one of the best players in college basketball. I think that's something that he can do, and hopefully that's something that he chooses to do.
I'll say this, Donald. He hit 28% of his threes this year. If Kyle Filipowski can find a way, now this is a big if, but if Kyle Filipowski finds a way to come back and hit 37% of his threes next year, then you're right. Then he goes,
absolutely.
Then he's a top 20, if not a lottery pick in next year's draft. So I see the rationale, but it does take improvement.
I'm more confident that Filipowski is going to raise his 3-point percentage over 30% next year than I am that he's going to raise his per game scoring average next year in a Duke uniform. Because
I agree with that too.
There are more. We talked on the guards episode about how Duke has threats coming in, and we have not on this big man episode yet highlighted the stellar bigs that Duke is bringing in next year. Mackenzie Mbako is taking shots from Kyle Filipowski. Sean Stewart might take shots from Kyle Filipowski, and if he plays much, TJ Power is taking shots from Kyle Filipowski.
I think the other thing, right, is the other more surprising thing for me. It wasn't the fact that he led the team in scoring, is that they led the team in rebounding. Like, he has that ability to be effective as a rebounder. And if he can continue that, again, there's going to be teams that are going to be like, yo, you can score at, almost at will whenever you need to. You can rebound, you can shoot the three, you can even have a couple of blocks here and there. Like, if he has that whole package, I think he can improve in all these areas. But yeah, he may decrease in scoring, but if he maintains the rebounding and the defensive part of the thing, and also kind of improve in the defensive end, because it's not like he was, a standout defender. He can improve in that area. There's a lot of ways for him to improve in that. And if he can do that, I think NBA teams are going to be like, wow, this guy really is this whole package. And again, I think from where he was standing out at the beginning of the summer last year, like the fact that he has elevated to this point means that he kind of has that elevation that he can still do. And I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Look, Flip's ability to guard smaller players was an absolute shocking development this year. And he did a really nice job at it. And the NBA has to be intrigued at that. I see the rationale for why he comes back. We've discussed it. And again, I think he will come back. I kind of feel like anytime you have a first round grade, I sort of feel like you have to take it. All right. Speaking of guys who have a first round grade, or maybe not, it's a kind of a question. Let's get to Dereck Lively. Donald, I'll let you go first on this one. What will he do? What should he do?
I'm probably going to buck the trend a little bit on this. He should stay, but he's going to go. And I say he should stay because I think just like I feel like, that Kyle Filipowski can improve in some areas, I think Dereck Lively can also improve in some areas. I believe that he can improve mostly on the defensive end. I think his defensive attributes are without question, but I do think that his offensive abilities can improve. And if he does, then again, in this downward year that is the 2024 draft class, he can be a guy that can stand out, because in this era of NBA basketball, having the 5 versus not having the 5 is always going to be a debate. And I think if he can stand out by saying, yo, I can provide offense and defense, then he's basically going to say, I dare teams not to take me. Someone's going to take him if he's doing that.
I'll come back to the same point about getting shots next year, which I think is going to be harder for everyone than it was on this year's team. Once we discovered that Mark Mitchell wasn't much of a scorer, and once Dereck Whitehead took forever to return to form and start taking the shots that we expected him to take, Dereck Lively is going to have a hard time getting shots next year for Duke. And so, Donald, I think I'm sort of the most on the fence about this in terms of should he go. I think will he go, to me, feels almost certain that this has been the plan all along, and he's been working towards it this way. He has a very clear NBA-ready skill right now, which is, I think, the most important. Like, you have to have the right size, and you have to have a skill that is NBA-ready. As an interior defender, Dereck Lively is ready for the NBA, and the risk that he would take coming back next year, when I think about should he come back, the risk is he comes back to develop an outside shot and then doesn't get enough touches to demonstrate that he has done that. And therefore, like, I don't know that would ever hurt his draft stock, because he'll still be a great defender and a great shot blocker. And he'll still be able to dunk the heck out of the ball. But if he can't shoot next year, then nothing has improved for his prospects.
So I agree with you guys. He will declare for the draft. I think that unlike some of the other guys at Duke who are making this decision, he has some real financial incentives to declare for the draft and get that money for his single mom.
I mean, we talked about this on that other episode.
Yeah. Literally, using NIL money to try and put a down payment on a house for her. That the money is really, really important to him. So I think he will declare for the NBA draft, and I wish him nothing but great success. What should he do? I actually think he should stay at Duke, and here's why. Sam, you kind of alluded to this. I don't think his stock can get much worse. Like, the NBA is already they're going to look at him right now and say, absolutely elite, unbelievable rim protection, one of the best rim protectors that we've seen in the college ranks in recent years, and nothing on offense. Can't take an outside shot. Can't, basically he's a lob threat, and that's it. You can't even pass in the ball in the post with, a bad defender guarding him and expect him to score. It can't get worse than that. And we still think he's a first-round draft pick or very, very early in the second round. So if it can't get worse, maybe if he comes back and he demonstrates that three-point shot that we kept on hearing about, and he took a few of them this year. If he demonstrates that three-point shot, then suddenly the NBA may go, wait a second. Wait, this guy does have, if he shows any semblance of an offensive game, he could rocket up draft boards. So that's why I think he should come back. Although part of that should is how confident is he in his own ability to develop that shot and develop some offensive post moves. And I don't know the answer to that. We've seen footage. We talked about it. I talked about it. The footage of him working so hard with Emile Jefferson. Well, how much is that stuff paying off? Because frankly, we didn't see it during the season very much.
I would say that, at least from the standpoint of how they were ranked in the, ESPN rankings and all the composite rankings, whatever, Dereck Lively was close to being the, if not the number one pick in most of those big major rankings for the entering class. And I feel like we, at least towards the end of the year, started to get some semblance of why he was that number one pick, right? We talked about Dereck and how we felt like he couldn't, we didn't get all of the Dereck Whitehead that we were expecting. But for Dereck Lively, I thought we were getting much closer to seeing that. And I would love to see a whole season of a Dereck Lively with a chip on his shoulder saying, hey, I need to get to the NBA and I need people to understand that I am the best player in this class. For him to have that on his shoulder, and with the, with all the other, outside things of like, hey, I'm trying to, what he's working for, who he's playing for, is not necessarily just for him, it's for his family and his friends. Like, I would love to see that kind of Dereck Lively show up in a Duke uniform, because I think that man would be a terror on the rest of college basketball.
Okay, guys, we're going to do one more quick one before we take a commercial break, and that is Ryan Young. And here, I think we already know, because it's been declared, Duke men's basketball has tweeted out photos of Ryan Young that say, hey, I'm coming back. So I'm not going to ask you guys what will he do, what should he do, because the answer is he will come back, and I think we all think that he should come back. It's not like we're looking at Ryan Young and we go, the NBA is calling, man. What are you doing? So instead, I want to ask you a different question. What do you think we're going to get from Ryan Young next year? Sam, I'll go to you first.
Well, I have to start with, given that he'll be an MBA student next year, my first question is what kind of job is he aiming for? Because if you're recruiting for investment banking, it's one thing. If you're recruiting for management consulting, it's another thing. If you're trying to go sustainability, it's a completely different. So I have to know that.
Ryan, if you're listening to the podcast, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. Sam will give you context.
I will. Ryan, I'll do a coffee chat with you in exchange for, you want to come on the show and talk to us about the experience? We could do that anytime you want. Seriously, though, what I expect from him, one, is the thing that I mentioned on the last episode, which is that he will be named a captain, and John Shire is going to talk extensively about what a great leader Ryan Young is and how well he has adapted to Duke, having, joined the program after he had been in college for a few years somewhere else. I predict we're going to hear a ton about Ryan Young's leadership next season and his continued commitment to his own drip, I think is the word that the kids use these days, because they always do the pregame, like, what are the guys wearing? And Ryan Young's always just like, wearing whatever sweaters he would be like going to his parents' birthday party in. So I love that for him. On the court, the most important thing for Ryan Young, I think what I expect is not a huge amount of development, right? He's going to be in his 5th year in college. He has been a very similar player during his time at both Northwestern and Duke.
Sam, I need to correct you. He will actually be in his 6th year.
Sorry, his 6th year. Can I take a quick diversion here? And I'm gonna do something insane. And I need you guys to, if you're not sitting down, I think you're both sitting down. I'm about to give credit to Armando Bacot. Because Armando Bacot declared that he was coming back to Carolina, and he tweeted out a photo of Perry Ellis. And I thought that was the funniest thing that he could have possibly done with that announcement.
It's because he's not old enough for Toby Bailey, who was in college for 47 years.
Yeah, exactly. And he picked up an image of Perry Ellis where Perry Ellis still had hair. So it must have been from like 40 years ago. Anyway, we're back on Ryan Young, who's in his 6th season in college. I project that he is going to play very similar minutes and the exact same role next year for Duke. The rumors I think that have been flying around is that Duke is recruiting a big man sort of regardless of what happens with the NBA draft talk, which tells me that Ryan Young almost certainly knows that he's at least beginning the season as a bench player, not as a starter, but he will contribute a lot to the team. And when Duke is playing teams that are not that big, or when Duke is playing teams that don't have super athletic bigs that can just easily block Ryan Young's shot and whom Ryan Young can't defend, he will get real minutes. If the rotation gets squeezed again next year and John Shire decides that heading into the postseason, Duke only needs 6 guys, Ryan Young's probably not in that rotation, and he will, I assume, be fine with it because it seems like he's getting a lot more out of this experience than just the minutes and the preparation for a pro career that I am not sure is going to be very lengthy.
So a few things, not necessarily in the correct order, but I'll start with this. You mentioned that he probably, with all the talk about who might be coming in from the portal or elsewhere, that he may not be, he may be a bench player to start the year. We thought he was going to be a bench player to start this year. He ended up starting this year because we had some injuries. So I think the great thing about Ryan Young is that he's going to stay ready, so he won't have to get ready and he'll always be ready. My mantra of life. The thing I wanted to start with was, this is not something I would have thought I would say at the beginning of the year, but man, am I glad that Ryan Young is coming back, right? Like, this is of the transfers that came in, the fact that he's staying, and we knew that he had an extra year of eligibility in addition to the graduate year that he came in for. Like, I was like, oh yeah, he'll come in, he'll do his probably do his year, and then he'll graduate. But man, am I glad he's coming back, because he provides that leadership, he provides the quality, and again, he has the character and really just the charisma to just step in and do what needs to be done, right? Like, he started the year, he's played 30 minutes in a game, he's played 2 minutes in a game. He's done it all. He's scored 10 points, he's done double doubles, he's done a lot of things. He's provided even some blocks when we needed it. He's kind of the barometer of this team. He knows what needs to happen, and he understands what he needs to do to make that happen. And I'm so glad that he is going to be back on this team. So I think for me, I think the one thing I want to see him do next year is continue to do that from a leadership standpoint, be the guy that can help lead this team, even if he's not the captain, right? I think we assume that he can be one of those captains and that he will be one of the captains. But even if he's not, he wasn't a captain this year and he provided that leadership quality. I hope that continues. And I think from my standpoint, whenever he's in the game, just to continue to be as efficient as he was. There were times where we talked about him being in the game for 9 minutes and he'd have like 8 points and 7 rebounds and a block. And you're just like, man, this guy was everywhere in the little time that he was on the court. And I just hope that happens, whether it's 9 minutes, whether it's 2 minutes, whether it's 27 minutes, whatever he's on the floor, I think he can be a guy that can be the most efficient player on this team. And if he is that, then Duke is going to be a better team for it.
So I know everyone likes to call Ryan Young Mr. YMCA and stuff like that. I actually think he should be called security blanket. If Duke runs into injury troubles in our big men next year, you just know what you're going to get from Ryan Young. If there are games where, where he's forced into or where the situation is right for him to play, more significant minutes, you know what you're going to get from Ryan Young. Dude is already 23. He will turn 24 on December 2nd of this coming year. He is a really experienced college basketball player. He's been around it for a long time. I actually think, Sam, you were joking and talking about, what's he majoring in? I think Ryan Young is the kind of guy who I think you'll see on sidelines at some point in his career. He may be doing something in business. He may go play, pro ball in Europe or someplace like that. He's gonna tear it up in whatever professional business league it is he plays in at some point.
You can get through the MBA program and just take all the like management and leadership classes and skip all the finance. So yeah, I don't know if he's doing that, but he totally could.
Yeah,
but look,
the thing I was going to say about Ryan Young is that I don't think people realized. Do you know how much he improved from his last year at Northwestern to his first year at Duke? So first of all, as we noted, he was top 15 in the country at offensive rebound percentage. There is no one who goes after rebounds harder than Ryan Young does. And if you look at some of his stats, like the player that he was at Northwestern, the player he was at Duke, his last year at Northwestern, he only shot, I'm going to find the exact number. He hit 55% of his shots from the field his last year at Northwestern. At Duke last year, he hit 68, almost 69% of his shots from the field. At the free throw line at Northwestern, he was 67% free throw shooter. At Duke, 81%. And by the way, he took enough free throws that's not a fluke of a number. His offensive rebounding number at Duke, absolutely off the charts. He blocked more shots. He had some awesome block shots. He improved significantly from the player he was at Northwestern to the player he was at Duke. I'm not ruling out him improving a little bit again. I'm with you guys. I don't think he's going to play heavy minutes, but Mr. Security Blanket, Ryan Young, when we need him, he will do what we ask him to do. And I agree with you guys. He will be a team captain.
He'll be a team captain. He also hustles, right? Like there was a few games.
Yeah, right. He should be Mr. Hustle more than Mr. Security Blanket.
There was a few games this year where we questioned the hustle and the heart and the intensity and desire and fire and all that stuff of this team. And Ryan Young was not included in any of those conversations because even in those games, that man was on the floor diving for loose balls. That man was all over the place. He's the type of guy that you want on your team because he understands the role that you want to give him, and he will embrace any role that you want him to take.
For a dude who's 6'11", who's coming up on his mid-20s to still be falling on the ground to go after loose balls, like
I know that hurt.
There's got to be like one screw loose if you're still doing that, and he's doing it with abandon. Jason, I love the description that you gave about him being the security blanket. I think it makes a ton of sense for Duke, and given that the big man rotation, maybe some of Flip, Mbako, maybe Stewart is considered a big man. Maybe he's considered more of a wing. And then maybe Duke goes out and get a transfer guy.
I actually think Stewart's more of a big and Mbako's more
Mbako's a wing. Yeah. So Duke kind of needs the same, like you say, security blanket this year that they did this past year with two really talented guys in Flip and Lively as the notional starters.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break. Boy, we've been talking a lot, but when we come back from the break, perhaps the biggest, most suspenseful decision out there. What will Mark Mitchell decide? I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. We'll be back with that after this.
Why take one vacation with the family when you could take all of them? With Royal Caribbean, you don't just go to the beach. You visit a private island and race down the tallest water slide in North America. You don't just go for a road trip. You ATV and zip line through the jungle. You don't just go somewhere new. You rappel down waterfalls and discover ancient temples. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
All right, the endless conversation. I know for those of you listening, it may not feel endless, but we've been doing this all in one fell swoop. We've been talking for a while.
We've been here for 84 years.
We're getting ready to wrap up the discussion of who's going to do what should they do, what will they do, and we come to one of the most important ones, Mark Mitchell. Sam, you get the honor of going first. What will Mark Mitchell do? What should Mark Mitchell do?
I have a couple.
I like the pause,
thoughts.
By the way. I'm not editing that pause out. That was a great pause.
Well, and the audience couldn't see it, but I was collecting my thoughts. I have all the thoughts. I don't think Mark Mitchell is leaving for the NBA. Let me get that out. I don't think he should. I don't think he will. I guess there is a chance that he decides to do that. Some mock drafts put him like at the end of the second round, and that is all well and good. I don't think anyone at Duke is advising him that makes any sense. There is a world where I think it makes sense for Mark Mitchell to transfer because there are a lot of other guys on the roster that are his size, and we know that he is a competitor, and I'm sure that he does not see Sean Stewart and Mackenzie Mbako as threats because they are freshmen and he will be a sophomore, but they will be threats to his playing time. I don't know if that means they will be, like, he could end up being better than both of those guys. That would not surprise me, but the roster will be more crowded at his position than it was this year, even with Dereck Whitehead.
Dude, TJ Power. Now, I don't think he's going to beat all these guys out, but there's a world where TJ Power is a power forward or a small forward. So,
So all of that is on the table here. I don't think Mark Mitchell should transfer. I think Mark Mitchell should stay at Duke, and I think that he will stay at Duke. And the reason is that in the same way that we were talking about how Dereck Whitehead's going to go to the NBA, and there are a million guys that are in the NBA that are Dereck Whitehead's like shape and size and roughly have his ability. You can't have too many guys like Mark Mitchell on your team in college because he demonstrated. And look, I've told you many times, I've been dogging on him all year, right? His shot is bad. It's really flat. And he has he's made a lot of mistakes on offense. But as we saw in the Tennessee loss, there are a lot of things that Mark Mitchell is doing on defense to clean up for mistakes that other guys on the perimeter are making. And as a second-year player, he is going to continue doing that. He will be one of the scariest defensive players in the ACC, if not in the country. I would not be surprised if he's up for every defensive performance award next year. And if he improves his shot a little bit, if he looks like he has a vaguely competent outside shot, he is going to be a real NBA draft prospect. And I feel like all of that is like in play for Mark Mitchell and will not meaningfully cut into the ability for Tyrese Proctor, Mackenzie Mbako, Kyle Filipowski to all demonstrate their NBA worth alongside him, because at his best, I think that Mitchell is like the ultimate guy that you want on your team because he's going to make other guys around him better.
I think that Mark Mitchell should stay. I think he will stay. I don't think he'll transfer or go pro. And the reason why I think that is because, damn it, do you want to imagine a sophomore year of Mark Mitchell, how good he could possibly be? I mean, let's just go back to the last game of the year. Mark Mitchell started, there was 36 games that Duke played this season, and Mark Mitchell started 35. And then the one game he did not start, we found out just how invaluable he is to this team. From the defensive standpoint, there's a lot of people who can't do what he does. I think there's a lot that he can improve on. And I can't wait to see that improvement over the summer. I think a summer in the gym, I think a summer working on his jumper, I think a summer working on his offensive game will complement all the things that he does in on the defensive end. I think on the defensive end, I think the one thing that people kind of realized during that Tennessee game is that there's a lot of things that just aren't stat worthy. They don't have stats for them, but they're important to a team. And on the defensive end, he does a lot of things that you just can't quantify with stats. And because of that, we found that out the hard way that, man, Mark Mitchell brings a lot of things to the table that guys, I know you guys like to say that we dogged them all year. And yeah, we probably did, but everyone did. But I think it was because we look at the stats and we say these stats showed that Mark Mitchell wasn't doing his job. And there's a lot of things that he was doing that, again, can't be measured with stats. So we kind of look back now and go, oh man, he was doing everything in these areas that no one else was doing, and we can't really quantify how immeasurable that is to a team. Him being on this team as a sophomore, Mark Mitchell, my God, I would love to see that. And that's why this is more of a homer pick. I have no idea what he's going to do. This might be the biggest decision from any player on Duke's current roster. But if he comes back for a sophomore year, Duke is with all the other people that we think they're probably going to come back and all the transfers, whoever, right? If Mark Mitchell comes back, this team is the number one team in the country. That's how good he can be on defense, and that's how much he can improve on offense. Because if we see a sophomore Mark Mitchell on offense that has improved, it's over.
Gentlemen, what is the best thing about freshmen? They become sophomores.
Whose quote is that?
I don't know, but it's a great quote. I use it all the time.
It definitely has been attributed.
Quote,
yeah, it's been attributed to some basketball coach or announcer, right?
Right. So I believe that Mark Mitchell will come back. I know with a lot of guys, I've said what they should do is declare and see what the NBA has to say. I'm actually going to go ahead and tell you that I don't think Mark Mitchell needs to even do that, because the NBA is going to say to him, son, you're probably not getting drafted. We love your athleticism, but we don't see how you can impact an NBA game offensively. So we think you should stay in college. And I think Mark Mitchell already knows that. He, talking to scouts and getting their feedback, I can tell you, Mark, they're going to say, work on that jump shot form.
Make no mistake, while we're talking right now, we don't have to worry about whether these guys are talking to agents or talking to people in the NBA. They're already doing that. And I feel like, especially with Duke, right? We've talked about it over the last few years. And the fact that Coach K is no longer here doesn't mistake the fact that Duke has probably the best number of resources for people in the NBA who can give you quick feedback on what you can and can't do.
Look, when we say the brotherhood, people usually go, oh, Zion,
real.
Tatum, Kyrie, blah, 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 blah. All these guys playing in the NBA. Let me tell you something. The brotherhood is a hell of a lot of Dukies who are in NBA front offices. It's Mike Dunleavy, the assistant GM of the Golden State Warriors. It's David McClure, who is a scout for, I forget which team it is. I mean, there are Trajan.
He was with the Spurs for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah. They're just a lot. They're a lot of Duke players.
Trajan Langdon.
Yeah, who are specifically their job in the NBA. They're getting paid good NBA money to watch college players, I should say, and evaluate which of those players are worth taking and developing to the next level. Those guys, I mean, the feedback they can give these players, unbelievable. But getting back to Mark Mitchell, again, I think he should stay at Duke, and I think his potential for improvement is remarkable. And I'm going to give you the guy that I want to compare him to, Jeremy Sohan, who played a year for Baylor and is currently in the NBA and is doing a really nice, he's considered one of the better rookies in the NBA. This is a guy who was absolutely not, but by the way, he currently plays for the Spurs, does Sohan. This is a guy who is not an offensive player in college, but he's such a great athlete. He's really long. He's a great defender. And in the NBA, he's begun to develop a little more of an offensive game. Essentially, his sophomore year is playing in the NBA. I think Mark Mitchell doesn't quite have Sohan's sort of measurables and athleticism. So he's not going to, he's not in line to get picked yet. But if he can have that same kind of development on offense, if he can get a little bit better with that outside shot, if he can become a little more aggressive and assertive in the half court offense for Duke, then he can absolutely play his way into being a valuable NBA player. And I want to remind you guys, this was someone, Mark Mitchell, who really struggled at times for Duke this past year, getting any kind of offensive game. There are a number of games out there where Mark Mitchell scored like 2 points, 4 points, 5 points, something like that. But then he had a little run, a little flurry late in the season from Louisville all the way up until the game against Virginia in the Miami in the ACC semifinals. There was a run of 6 games in a row where Mark Mitchell was in double figures in every single one of those games, including several games where he got 13, 14, 17 plus points. If Mark Mitchell is able to do that consistently next year, I mean, the NBA is going to be in his future. All that said, I want to agree with Sam about something. There's a real risk for Mark Mitchell. And that risk is Mackenzie Mbako. Because if you look at, sort of how we've projected everything for Duke, we've already talked about the fact that there is talk that Duke wants to see if maybe there's a starting center in the portal that they pick up. And there are some names that have begun to flitter about that Duke may be looking at guys who could come in and be centers because Duke thinks Kyle Filipowski, if he comes back, and he probably is going to come back, they think his best position is power forward. In that kind of a situation, you start to go, well, wait a second, there's a top 5 freshman in Mackenzie Mbako, and his natural position is probably small forward. That's the same position Mark Mitchell plays. So, Sam, you identified it. There is a real risk for Mark Mitchell in terms of who he'll have to compete with next year. But I think the potential, first of all, I don't think there's an opportunity for him now. I don't know that transferring is going to sit very well with NBA guys who think, no, you should be competing against the best. So let me say this. If he beats out Mackenzie Mbako for a starting position, that may speak volumes to the NBA as well.
I think when it comes to Mark Mitchell, he doesn't necessarily have to improve that much when it comes to the offensive side. I do think he needs to improve in the offensive end, but check this, right? You have some guys that are averaging 15, 16, 17 points a game in college who go to the NBA and they average 6, 7, 8 points a game. Last year,
there are plenty who do worse than that.
Right. And last year, Mark Mitchell averaged 9.1 points per game. He averaged 4.5 rebounds a game. And I think that he can improve in both of those areas. And it doesn't have to be that much if he has that, again, that unquantified measure to a team. I think that he already has that. So if he improves to 12 points a game, getting into double figures, maybe getting up to 5 or 6 rebounds a game, those stats for some reason, I know there's not, we're talking about, not that much as far as numbers movement, but that seems so much better to an NBA team where they go, oh, well, this guy, I can take him to the next level from an offensive standpoint, and his defense is already there. I think there's ways for him to improve. He doesn't have to improve even with some of these guys that may be coming in, taking the basketball, quote unquote, away from him, that he can improve on the offensive end and still be desirable to NBA teams.
While you guys were doing all the good analysis, I was looking up who said the quote about freshmen becoming sophomores. Turns out it was Al McGuire.
Al McGuire,
legend.
That's who it was.
Legend.
Yeah, former head coach of Marquette, won a national championship, and then, of course, was a broadcaster for many years. And then, of course, I was reading his entire Wikipedia page. Do either of you know what Al McGuire did after he coached Marquette before he became a broadcaster?
Didn't he coach in the NBA?
Nope.
No. He
played in the NBA. His Wikipedia page is great. It has a couple great nuggets in there. I'm just reading from his Wikipedia. This says, so he played for the Knicks for 3 years. He once famously pleaded with his coach for playing time with this guarantee: I can stop Kuzi. Inserted into the lineup, McGuire then proceeded to foul the Celtics star on his next 6 trips down the court. That's a good one.
Hey, you have 6 fouls in the NBA. Use them.
So, Jason, do you have a guess?
I don't have a guess, but you're going to tell me, and I'm going to say I think I knew that.
He was an executive at a sportswear company that has since been folded into 2 different acquisitions. So the brand still exists. It's called Medalist, but he joined that company for a couple of years, and then he became a broadcaster.
All world.
Al McGuire said that the best thing about best thing about freshmen is they become sophomores. I will say that there are some quotes on the internet that are misattributed. And this Googling sort of led me into the same loop of websites that just attribute quotes. So it might not be right, but the internet agrees that it's true. So I think you have to hand it to him.
George Washington once said that everything on the internet must be true. That's what I
think. I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, we're going to wrap this up. We have one more player to discuss, and that is none other than Christian Reeves, a gentleman who everyone sort of thought was probably going to redshirt his first year at Duke. Ended up he didn't redshirt. Ended up he really only played in very, very few games at scrub time. But man, it seems like every single time he got in at scrub time, he managed to get a bucket, and he shot 73% from the field when he was in those games.
How many shots did he take?
A total of 11. 11. He was 8
11
of 11.
Hey, so he was 8 for 11 from the field.
Yeah, but he only played in 13 games all year, and he's getting like maybe 2 minutes in most of those games. So, what will he do? What should he do? Donald, give it to me first.
He will stay. He should stay. I say this because I can teach him defense. I can teach him offense. I can teach him special teams. I can teach him how to sit on the bench. I can teach him how to be a great teammate. I cannot teach 7'1", and that man is 7'1". If we have more 7'1" bodies to throw out there, I like, especially with him. I think again, a summer of him improving, a whole year being on the bench, kind of learning and being the guy that you can kind of that has been helping out like Dereck Lively and Kyle Filipowski in practice. That is going to be immeasurable, experience for him. And I think he can take it out on other teams next year. So yeah, you can't teach 7'1". I'd love to have him back on the team just to have more 7-foot trees on the on the floor.
I think that he should transfer because, like you said, Donald, you can't teach 7'1", and most Division I men's basketball teams would love to have him getting minutes because of his size and baseline athletic ability. I think he will stay because I don't know what dark magic John Shire has put upon Christian Reeves and his family, but there was all that talk about redshirting. Then they were like, oh, he played well in an exhibition game. I guess he's not going to redshirt. And then he only played in a couple games all year, and he still seemed like he was totally engaged with the team on the bench throughout the season. So I don't know what is in the water at the practice facility there, but Christian Reeves seems bought into Duke basketball in a way that if I was him and I saw all the public facing facts of the situation, I would be mad as hell.
All right, I'm going to dispute you, Sam. So he will stay. He should stay. One of the reasons he will stay is that one of the reasons he came to Duke is he is good friends with, he was high school teammates with Caleb Foster. He wants to play with his buddy Caleb, who is arriving on campus he'll arrive this summer, but Caleb Foster, part of the Duke incoming freshman class. And I know that Christian Reeves wants to play with Caleb. They were good friends in high school. I'm going to give you another reason why Christian Reeves should stick around at Duke. Sure, it is possible that next year he will still struggle to get minutes a little bit. Ryan Young's
Jason, the rumor is that Duke is recruiting a big man right now. Like, we think that, and granted, the 5 best big men on the transfer portal market are almost certainly better than Christian Reeves, but like, Duke is actively recruiting a big man. They have already written off Christian Reeves for next year as being a rotation player. It sounds like.
Okay, I agree with you, but let me dig a little deeper than that. Because Christian Reeves knows, look, this is not a guy who was a 5-star recruit. This is a guy who is barely top 200. This is a really unusual. Duke doesn't get recruits like this very often. Usually our guys are at worst like top 60 or top 70. This is a guy who is barely top 200. When he came to Duke, he knew he was a developmental player. I got a question for you. Is there anyone that Duke has recruited in the class of 2023 who is a center? Don't need to answer me because the answer is no. Is there anyone that Duke is currently recruiting in the class of 2024 who is a center? Don't bother to answer me. I'll tell you what the answer. The answer is no. I believe, sure, Christian Reeves may struggle to get minutes next year, but I believe that it is setting up for Christian Reeves to be a Duke is setting it up. John Shire, with his recruiting, is setting it up for Christian Reeves to be a rotation player, perhaps even a starter when he is a junior at Duke. And that's why I think he should stick around. And frankly, he didn't do enough where he had like great portal options anyway. Go ahead.
I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him fight for minutes, right? Because if you think about it, there's, whoever we're trying to recruit, because the rumors that we've kind of heard is not necessarily that Duke is going after big men, that big men have been like, hey, Duke, I hear you have an opening. I could be that guy. and they have their pick, right? And they can pick whoever they want. And it'd be interesting to see how that develops. But you also have Ryan Young and you have Christian Reeves. And I'd love to see him fight for those minutes, because I think, again, if he fights for those minutes, that means he's improving, and we're going to have a much better Christian Reeves than we have this year. And again, add to the fact that you can't teach 7-1. If he can come off the bench and give 5-10 minutes, whatever, right, and give us, a few rebounds and some blocks, hell yeah, let's do it.
All right. We have gone through the roster. Congratulations, gentlemen. It took some time. It took some effort, but we got there. I would right now like to go back and recap what we said about every one of these guys. No, actually, I don't want to. I'm ready to wrap it up.
You can write it into the description of the episode and just spoil the whole thing.
Oh, I'm not doing that. That's not going to happen. No where
spoilers.
If you don't remember what we said, just hit repeat and we'll say it all for you again. But our outlook is pretty rosy. I will say this. We think that a significant number of players who could go to the NBA draft, players who in past years have all gone to the NBA draft, we think that they will, at least some of them, perhaps even as many as 3 of them, will return to Duke.
And to call back to a previous episode that we had, it ties into a lot of what we've heard John Shire apparently is thinking with regards to the continuity of the program. And having a lot of these guys come back and having them come back for multiple years means that we're, not necessarily done with the one and done era, but that a lot of these guys are going to be staying for a couple of years, at least 2-3 years, and have that continuity that we haven't had in a long time.
Man, I would love to see it. It would be fun. All right. That's going to wrap it up for us here on this episode of the DBR podcast, whatever the heck it is. I'm Jason. He's Sam. He's Donald. Thanks for listening. If you disagree with us, if you agree with us, if you're just absolutely over the hills thrilled with what we had to say and just want to reach out to us and say, good God, I hope you guys are correct, feel free to write to us, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. By the way, if you haven't liked and subscribed to this podcast, what are you doing? Why are you still listening without liking and subscribing? Please click those buttons. Do that right away so that we get into your feed immediately. Again, thank you so much for listening. Here's the Duke Band to play us out and take us home. We did not even bring up the name of Joey Baker. Like this whole season, I don't know.
Yeah.
Guys leave. We didn't, frankly, we didn't talk about Jamin Brakefield or Henry Coleman. And did we miss them? I don't know that we missed it. I look at what those guys did at their schools, and both of them.
Wait, Joey Baker played college basketball this year?
Come on.
I didn't know that. Where did he play?
Come on. He was at Michigan.
Was he?
He had some big games for Michigan. He had some horrible games, but he had. Wait, you didn't see when Joey Baker missed the wide open 3 to tie up the game for Michigan against who was Indiana, maybe?
No, I missed that.
Oh, it's like a big thing. It was a big thing on Twitter.
It was Illinois.
Oh, yeah, because you're a Michigan fan.
No, but,
I totally missed that.
And that game would have, like, if they had won that game, everyone was like, oh, they were in the tournament.
Yep.
And they lost that. They lost the next game, and then they lost the first round of the NCAA or the Big Ten tournament. They're out.
You guys could have played a fun game of see if Sam remembers where all these guys transferred to.
Yo,
why was Coach K in New York all the time? NYU.
Yeah, that one I know because it's like a funny story.
Yeah.
Jamin Brakefield entered the portal after being like Ole Miss's leading scorer. Now, granted, he only averaged like 10 points a game. Ole Miss is terrible. But he entered the portal. He's considered like one of the 10 best guys in the portal right now.
Well, he entered the portal because Chris Beard got hired.
Oh, he didn't want to play for Beard?
No one wants to play for Beard.
Beard's a hard ass.
Is that true? Why, if they, I can't, I would be surprised if they hired him if nobody wanted to play for him. I can understand players' moms not wanting their kids to play.
They hired him. They hired him.
He's supposed to be a hard ass too, like really tough on the players.
Yeah. They hired him, and
Coach K recruited the best class every year. He's a hard ass.
Brakefield announced like hours later. They're like, "Oh yeah, I really have respect for Coach Beard, but I'm entering the portal now." And apparently like 8 guys from Ole Miss into the portal within hours of them announcing Beard.
Where did Henry Coleman play this year? Texas
A&M. It starts for Texas A&M. Their tournament, they were. Now he did like nothing for them though. He rebounds and plays hard defense.
He was all cardio. Yeah.
Like he only
All right,
has
let's
like
do
maybe
it.
6 points per game or something like that.
Hey,
Yeah.
you know my favorite example, Lance Thomas was the all cardio, was all ACC cardio team.
All
He
ACC
played
cardio.
in the NBA for 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
Lance Thomas earned like $14 or $15 million.
I know. In hindsight, the jewelry was a real scandal. No one knew it at the time.
Let me give you a big Labor Day surprise. Most people think if we all exercise the same and eat the same, we'd all look the same. And let me tell you why that's wrong. Your body is unique and your metabolism is unique. I'm Lacey Green and I'm a super trainer at Body. That's BODI.com. And you can't see me, but I don't look like your average personal trainer. I'm curvy and I'm proud of it. So I created a program for beginners only on the Body app to show people like us how to get incredible results and be our version of happy and healthy. This isn't just workout videos. It's people like you and me. It's community. It's incredible trainers. It's easy to follow nutrition and mindset experts to help you reduce stress and just feel better. And you can get started with my new program called For Beginners Only. Now, here's the big surprise. If you go to body.com right now, that's BODI.com, not only can you get everything Body has to offer at 50% off with an annual membership, you'll also get an additional 20% off, but only during Labor Day weekend. Let's do this together. Go to body.com. That's body with an I.com.